strategies, workshops, plans. In an age where we have access to so much information and advice, why is it coaches are more relevant now than ever before? Hello and welcome to the Boostara podcast. I am your host, James. On the Boostara podcast, we speak to leaders in business and uncover the truths and insights from their amazing experiences. At Boostara, we help businesses boost growth, cut costs, and gain better business insights. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, type the word growth into the comments below and I will be sure to reach out. Today, on Halloween, on this spooky day, and we have got a bit of whirring. I'm not sure if our listeners can hear it, just adding to the spookiness of it. We are joined by John McHale, Managing Director of ActionCOACH in Lincolnshire. Hello and welcome, John.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a real privilege. Thank you, James.
Oh, no, but thank you, John. And I guess a good first question is, where are you calling us from? You can go as specific as you want, John.
From North Lincolnshire. So I actually live just near a little town called Brigg, which is about 8 miles from Scunthorpe. My HQ is, we actually do have an office in Scunthorpe, but I work across Lincolnshire and virtually I do some work overseas, but nearly all of it is face-to-face here in Lincolnshire.
Brilliant. And you know, I guess for a lot of our local listeners, they will be aware of yourself, John. They will have probably met you. They will have heard you on the radio waves as well on Steel FM. But, you know, for those of our listeners that are a bit further afield, could you just give us a little bit of, an introduction to yourself, John, and your journey to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I own a business coaching practice under the ActionCOACH franchise. It's a global business coaching company. It's the biggest in the world in the number of companies. It's in 84 countries now. Started 32 years ago by a gentleman called Brad Sugars, who was Australian by birth, relocated the headquarters to the west coast of America. So sadly, if I have to go for global training, I have to go to Las Vegas. But we get through it, James. I know. And the reason I tell you all about that is because the reason I do what I do is I had a corporate career. I worked in metals industries and I finished with Tata Steel in Scunthorpe. And I was a senior manager there and I was on the advanced development program. And as part of that, I was given a coach. Now at the time, and pretty much the conception that a lot of people have that you get given a coach because you're rubbish. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. You know, I was already a senior manager looking towards being a senior group manager. And what they wanted to do was get to know who you were and accelerate you quicker. So I was given a coach. My particular one I had was a lady called Juliet Lee. And I thought, you know, what is this all about? And anyway, 2 sessions in, I realized the impact of having a coach. And I worked with Juliet for maybe 2 years and I advanced within Tata Steel. And never forgot Juliet, still talk to her regularly via LinkedIn, hoping to catch up with her in Edinburgh for the new year when I pop up there for New Year. That's where she lives now. And it was her that started to free my mind up, or open my mind up, if that's correct, to this world of coaching. And I realized that a lot of work that I did with the people that worked in and around me, I developed a lot of people and teams, and I enjoyed that. And seeing how somebody could have an impact like Juliet did, I thought, I think this is maybe something I want to do for the rest of my life. And in session 2, sat with Juliet, she just put on the wall in front of us 2 imaginary doors. One I walked through and I stay where I was in the corporate world. And the second one I walked through to a world that I could have a bigger impact on people because I could actually go and do the thing that I really enjoyed, which I figured was actually developing people, developing teams. And I did a bit of work, which would have been, I guess you'd call it supply chain interface work with 8 companies in the UK, 1 in France and 1 in Sweden. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I remember coming back, I'd been in Gothenburg one week and we'd managed to reduce €500,000 out of a steel stockholder's stockholding because we made him or let him understand that the systems and processes allowed him to order smarter, which meant that he didn't have to hold or carry all the stock that he had. And that £500,000, of course, went straight in the bottom line and into his back pocket. And I remember coming home that evening or on the Friday of that week and saying to my wife, Catherine, that I really enjoy this. I think I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I expected to be greeted with a "don't be daft, that's a no, you know, you're 46, what you want about?" And the only thing Catherine said to me was, "Well, if you're going to do it soon because you're 46, otherwise it'll be too late." And I do remember thinking at the time, oh my goodness, that's not a no. That's the only thing I remember. It wasn't a no. So it took me a little while to leave, so I could maximize how much money I left with to help me. And I had 6 months off while I looked for what's the best vehicle. Do I do this on my own, or is there something I can piggyback on? So I looked at quite a few different companies. Action Coach was one of them. They started, you know, coming out as the front runner, and myself and Catherine went down. We had a discovery day, which is what franchises do. We had a full day down at Action Coach HQ in the UK, and we both jumped in the car to head home. And Catherine looked at me and she said, "These look like, and the fit, the perfect fit." And they were probably about 85%, 90% of what I was looking for. So 12 years ago, took the plunge, bought the franchise, and I've been doing this for ever since.
Wow, wow. I'd say the hallmarks of a great partner is, when they help, encourage you and lead you to the thing that you want and you think you can do well at, right? And
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And much as though I started a business 12 years ago, like many other businesses, I mean, the failure rate of business in the first 5 years is horrific and remains
yeah,
so. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. You would think, as a professional business coach, and I went through and did a whole load of training, that you should be able to just bypass the first 2 or 3 years. But, it's the same as any other. I had to go through the pain of getting myself into the marketplace and becoming established. So, but Catherine was there all the way through, which was
yeah.
incredible.
I suppose it links nicely to, the whole point of a coach is finding a great coach, finding a great partner that can also lead your company to great success. But I guess, one of the things, I've seen from my own experiences that I think coaches, and correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe struggle to balance that line a bit, is on how to help business leaders get immediate results versus long-term results, which the long-term results are probably going to be the ones that are most impactful for the company. But a lot of business leaders will see those immediate results as the value of working with yourself, right? Is that a difficult balancing act to get right?
It is an extremely difficult balancing act on the fact that in many instances, when people reach out, maybe it's just too late and we should have reached out sooner. It's not always too late. In odd instances, it's too late. There's nothing we can do. It's probably gone beyond, and it might be a last resort. But business owners are quite bright. Just the very fact they started businesses, they're not daft. But there are some people who think you're going to get instant results. Now, if people want instant results, um, they're going to get somebody who can promise immediate results. I can't. I can never promise immediate results. In fact, the one thing that we do is we have a guarantee, but the guarantee is a 12-month guarantee that whatever you invest in coaching in the first 12 months, we will give you that back on your gross profit line, if not multiples of. Otherwise, we'll give you all that money back. To try and do that in less than 12 months in some businesses is jolly difficult, because we've got to understand where the business currently is, what they've done in times past, and where they want to get to. And there are some things we have to go in and we have to undo before we can actually start going forward again, which is why it's a 12-month guarantee, but it is a guarantee. But to do that in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, I would say, James, it's virtually impossible. And if anybody is saying that, then I really would hold their feet to the flames and right, okay, show me you can do that in 4 or 8 weeks, because we don't see it. We just don't see it. That is too difficult. That is probably somebody saying things that they maybe shouldn't be.
And I guess, the work that you do, is it unpicking the business, or is it unpicking the problems within the founder, the CEO, the director, or the team? And like you said, the founders, CEOs, they're intelligent people, but I guess in a lot of ways they can sometimes be blind to the issues that they have, right? Is that what's the process that you go through with owners when they present you with, this is my problem? Is it always the problem that they think they have, or do you actually unpick a deeper problem?
I love the fact you smile when you ask that question, James, because is it so? Officially, we do business coaching. That's we call Action Coach business coaching. The people that have worked with us for a period of time, and we've worked for businesses. I mean, one particular business we've worked with, we see them every Thursday. We've seen them for 9 years.
Wow.
Do we just coach the business? Well, it comes down to coaching individuals, and it comes down to coaching team members as well.
Mm.
Now, it's really, well, first of all, The three biggest issues that we see all the time, James, regardless of whether you're turning over 10,000, 100,000, a million, 10 million, or 100 million, the three biggest issues we see by a country mile are time, team, and money. The time bit's been there just aren't enough hours in the week to get everything done. The team bit being that my team are really not doing what I want them to do, or they're doing things that I don't want them to do, and we're not making enough money. So those three things are huge. Now, the team one's a really interesting one, because if I sit down with an MD or a CEO and they start to talk to me and say, right, okay, but my team really is, yeah, they're not good. And I will just look at them and I'll say, right, okay, who recruited them? At which point they look straight back at me, and I know what they're thinking, but they don't say it out loud because they just don't. Um, so I'll follow that up with a question that says, if I was lifting your business up today from here in North Lincolnshire and I'm dropping it down in Edinburgh, who would you not take with you? And then I say to them, then I says, please don't say anything out loud, but if you've got any names in your head, those people should not be working for you now. So what you are doing is you are either accepting substandard behaviors or you're accepting substandard performance, and we're not doing anything about it. It is very rare when we ask that question, James, that any MD or CEO or business owner does not have at least one, if not multiple names in their head. And that gets them to think around, right, okay. And we will say to them, as if you want to go along this journey with us, we will help you, hold your hand and take you through the process. But the people you've got in your head, I said, they will end up leaving in all different ways and manners of leaving. They'll put their hand up at some point and say, I don't want to work here anymore. They might not necessarily put their hand up directly and say, hi, James, don't fancy working here anymore. But they'll do things and they'll exit in various ways, but they'll not make it along the journey, because as you start to change, those kind of behaviors and substandard performances, we're not going to accept, because it's not going to take the business to where they want to get to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's, from what I learned from my own experiences, that if you know that someone is going to be leaving, that shouldn't be a reactive process. That, this is like playing chess. You've got to, what is the succession going to be like? Can you proactively make a stand, make a transition to ensure that the business is moving forward and not dependent on that individual who is going to leave the leave the company, right? And that's exactly what you said there. The people problem, whether that's within management or just within the broader team. I'm wondering, from your experience going into these companies over the years, have those three trends, have they changed over time? Or have they always been those three?
It's always been those three, and it still comes out as those three. And, I work for a global company, so I get the opportunity every year to go to global conference, which is great because we get coaches from all around the world that fly into the same place. So, rather sadly, I had to go to Rio for 2 weeks in July.
I know. I saw your pictures. I felt so sorry, Sid.
But what it does give us, James, is the opportunity to talk to coaches from around the world, because we're there for a week. And we get to find out, I mean, we are in the classroom for 3 or 4 days, but we're also obviously in and around the social bits at breakfast, at dinner and lunch, and a few beers in the evening. And you get to talk around. And those same three problems continue to be the same, or the three biggest problems continue to be the three biggest problems in every country where we've got people at coaching.
Oh, wow.
So it's really interesting that it's really interesting that they remain the same, to various degrees, depending on which particular year that we're in, albeit every single coach will tell you that the last 2.5 years has been the hardest coaching years of their coaching careers. Now we look at that and you say, why would that be the case? Well, we first saw it in round about the last quarter, so October through December of 2023, where we started to see monies between businesses just not move as quickly. So people not paying the bills quite as much, maybe not getting paid, might be 1 day or 2 days late, and then it might become and we saw that. And as we went into 2024, and certainly this is true in the B2C world, so anybody that's in the business to consumer industries, and, the last 2.5 years, if you've been in retail, hospitality or bridal, that world has been brutal for the last 2.5 years. There's no other word for it. It has become brutal. And we continue to see, very sadly, businesses closing down all the time. Even the venue that we use for most of our events up here in North Lincolnshire sadly closed its doors last week as well. Another casualty of what's happening.
Yeah.
And people started holding on to money, so people were getting paid less. The global impact of the war in Ukraine and
Yeah.
energy prices going up on the back of that, and inflation in the UK, and household income became very tight. So disposable income became less. And the first thing we cut back on is hospitality, retail, and bridal. We work with the company in the bridal world, so we see the impact on that. And as we went into 2024, first half of 2024, then the back end last year, we saw that B2B people just starting to hold on to money as well. So payment times were taking longer and longer. And
Mm.
before you know it, you've got people that are struggling to get cash in from people that owe them money. Therefore, they're then struggling to pay their suppliers. And a lot of finance brokers will tell you that over the last 12, 18 months, that they have actually been lending money for working capital, which we've not had since just post the 2008 crash.
Yeah.
And they're doing that for businesses just to be able to have the day-to-day monies to be able to continue to clearly oil the wheels and keep going while they work on getting their monies in from people that have just become ever more lethargic at paying for the right reasons.
Mm.
People are not holding on to it just for the sake of it. They're not doing that. It's because they're not getting themselves to pass it on. So the last 2.5 years, a lot of coaches, certainly the ones that I know, I get to talk a lot of the ones in and around Action Coach. We've seen it's been really tough, and coaching people in many instances, James, just to survive the calendar year or the fiscal year has been a huge measure of success.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's I think a lot of people listening would be able to, obviously to relate to the struggles, right? And it's hard enough growing your business, but then when you're going through difficult times to sustain it, to keep it going is also a challenge, right? And I suppose that's part of running a business is being able to overcome and steer through those challenges, because inevitably they will come, whether it's COVID, financial crisis, whatever it might be, right? I'm wondering, John, you said there is, a success, a measurement of success, steering your clients through the difficulties that they're experiencing today. But would you be able to maybe elaborate on, a particular success story that you've had, a transformation you've had for a business owner or a company that really shows what it's like working with yourself,
Um, Absolutely, yes, I can, James.
with
But
or without, giving names?
yeah, I was going to say absolutely, I cannot give you the name. So it's one particular company, and they asked us to come in and do a bit of help with them, mostly in and around team development, if I'm
Hmm.
being honest. And this particular company, two of the people that sit at the top table, they sat in one of the seminars, workshops that we were running, and I did mostly that day about numbers. In fact, 90% of that particular seminar was around about numbers. And I did start it off. We talk about time, team, and money because they are the three biggest ones. And I'm saying I'm going to major today on money. And when I talked about team, I said the same thing as I said to you earlier, James, around if I was uplifting your company now and plopping it down somewhere else. And it finished and they grabbed me, they collared me and they said, "We're really interested in what you said around people." And they said, "We've got two people that shouldn't be working at our company." And I said, "Well, okay, we'll take it away from here." So I went and had a chat with them, and they did have, they had a couple of people that they maybe shouldn't have had, but they didn't know how to deal with it. So they
Mm.
asked, "Can you just come in and help us?" When we got there and started looking at it, it was a people issue, but it was also a systems and process issue where they didn't have the right things in place for the people to be able to demonstrate either they were good or they weren't good. So there were no employees in that particular company that had KPIs in place, key performance indicators. So there was no element of measuring. So the
Yeah.
first thing we did, we looked and say, right, okay, for each individual team and department, what should they be measured against and what would be fair and equitable measures? And we'll agree them with the team and start putting those things in place. Well, just by doing that, the two people that were maybe the ones that they thought were not performing became obvious. It became really obvious. So one of them didn't last very long at all. And we managed to, that person left the organization. As I said earlier, people put their hands up in all weird and wonderful ways to leave.
Yeah.
And the other person lasted about another 4 or 5 months, but that person also went. And what that did was the rest of the team, the rest of the company, they looked at it and just said, "Oh my God, thank goodness," because they realized that they should have gone a long time ago. Uh, but on the day to day, you don't always see everything. We don't always see everything. Um, what happened there was a completely transformational, and you see transformational change very rarely, James. Transformational change is rare. But from a company that was turning over a lot of money, they did. I mean, the net profit was very, very healthy. It was already a seven-figure net profit number, so it was very healthy. Uh, that trebled within 12 months.
Wow.
That trebled within 12 months. And
Mm.
subsequent to that, they've maintained that level of performance the year after. So,
Mhm.
they thought they just had a particular person issue or people issue. What it actually was a systems process by not having the correct measures in place and being able to evaluate everybody. And when they put those things in place and everybody understood what they were responsible and accountable for, everything started to change. And it
Yeah.
changed miraculously, and it was transformational. And again, this year, the halfway through this year, they will do another well into seven-figure net profit, which is, but I say transformational change like that is rare.
Yeah, yeah, and that's from having the right people in the right place, right, and taking out the people that are that bottleneck for growth, right? You reminded me of something I went through in Shanghai when I was working in Shanghai. We were made to go through a core strengths assessment. I'm not sure if you've heard of this one, or it's just in Shanghai, but it was essentially you took an assessment to find out whether you are more people oriented, process, or performance. And the one thing I remember from that is that the CEO should be smack bang in the middle. They should be all people, performance, and process. You'll have HR that might be more people process. You might have sales that should be more performance about the results. You might have specific jobs like teachers that might be a bit more people oriented because they're speaking with people, right? Or the front desk, for example. But obviously, knowing that you've got the right person in the right place, and then for upper management that they are actually aligned with all three, and they understand how their organization, their management system is balancing all three, because all three are equally important. If you take away one, then everything's going to fall apart, just like what you said. If you haven't got the people sorted, then then that's a bottleneck. If you haven't got the process sorted, that's a bottleneck, right? The performance, you're not hitting your targets, or there are targets, then it's going to fall apart. So, I guess that is a fundamental, just having everyone aligned and understanding exactly those three things, what you're saying, it's just fundamental, no matter what we go through in terms of the economy or politics or these kinds of things.
It's really interesting because big businesses, corporate businesses, they will put their people through behavioral profiling as they're going up through the organization. So they understand, are they people orientated? Are they task orientated? Because what we don't want is to put the wrong person into a role that is absolutely not for them. And we
Yeah.
do see that. We see it more often than you can imagine. SMEs don't necessarily understand the world of behavioral profiling even exists. And as we introduce this, and we introduce it to every business that we work with, and you can see the light bulb coming on, they realize that that person is not poorly performing, and they're just in the wrong job.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is they're probably in the wrong job. They went there at the time because it was a fit and it was the person that was available. There was one particular business. They're on the Northback Group in East Riding of Yorkshire, and one person been there a long time, got paid very well, but not very good at the job. And as we started to look at it, and we went through the behavioural profiling that you alluded to there, this person was completely person orientated, and they had him in a task oriented role, which needed structure. It needed someone just working on that all the time. And this person was people orientated. They needed to be in a relationship role, whether he were out like sales, for example, and fostering relationship. They took him out of that role and put somebody else in who loved it, who was good at it because that was their key strength, and put him into a role where he was customer facing, and he absolutely flew again. So putting people in the wrong roles is, and understanding behavioral profiling is a massive part. And lots of companies now that we work with, and businesses that we've worked with that we no longer work with, will still ask us, can we put people through the behavioral profiling process before we actually appoint them into the role that we are appointing them into? And we will do that. We'll do that every single time,
Yeah.
because they've realized that we don't want to put the wrong kind of person in that role.
Very interesting. What would you say, John? The most common misconceptions that companies have about business coaches, before working with yourself. What are those sort of common misconceptions?
Um, so I'll be blunt here, James, if I may be, because the coaching industry is completely unregulated in the UK. So there are no regulations. Nobody has to have accreditations. So you look at it and you jump on LinkedIn. Everybody's a coach on LinkedIn. And if you put the word coach and search on LinkedIn, it comes back with more than 1 million answers as to people that set them up as a coach. So the biggest conception is that people have gone in, they've charged a lot of money, people have seen no impact, and before they know it, they've burnt a lot of money, and they're thinking, God, I'm not even past where I was when I first started with them. So it is, in many respects, if I go back maybe 10 years, it's almost like the double glazing salesman effect from the 1980s, the sharp suits, the slicked back hair, and you're going to get skanked. And the first instance, people look at business coaching and say, well, what do these people really do then? And one of the questions that they should ask is, does that person who has that business, do they actually have a successful business of their own? And if not, that's the first warning sign that says, why would you have that? Second up would be, give me some case studies, real life case studies of businesses and people that you've worked with that I can see the impact that you've had on those businesses. And yet people still take business coaches on without going through that process. And because anybody can be a coach, and anybody could, anybody listening to this podcast, James, if they decide, oh, tomorrow I'm going to put myself out there on LinkedIn as a coach, then they're a coach, because you don't have to ascribe to sign up to any professional bodies. Now, the one thing I would like to see change in the UK is it becomes regulated. Now, whether that happens, we'll wait and see. But anybody thinking about taking a coach on, everybody should have a business coach. I have a business coach. I get coached every single Monday by a gentleman who's actually in Chester here in the UK. I had a guy that lived on the South Island in New Zealand for 5.5 years before that, and I would get coached every week. And I have the lady who works with me, Nicola. She sits on my coaching call every week with me for my accountability for me. So she knows exactly what I'm supposed to be doing for the next 7 days. And between us, we make sure that actually happens. So anything I do with the business that we work with, I do exactly myself. So complete congruency. And my coach, he holds me to account very, very well. Too well, sometimes, I would say, James. So, but going back 10 years and people got a coach, much so when I got one in my corporate world and people thinking, oh, must be struggling. What people are realizing now is that there are lots of examples of people that have done well having business coaches working with them. And that thought process that, oh, business must be struggling is now turning. I wouldn't say it's turned full circle yet that, oh, these are proactive, forward thinking, go getting business owners, but it's becoming more of a mainstream thing that business coaching is a thing that if you've got your own solicitor, your own accountant, then maybe you should have your own business coach. And I mean, Brad, who started Action Coach 32 years ago, his view was always that it would become mainstream. And much like Bill Gates talked around having a PC on every desk, Brad's view is that there should be a business coach in every business. Now, whether that's someone from Action Coach is immaterial. So long as we've got somebody who knows what they're doing, and it's not just somebody who's internally trained to do this and is given the title of business coach, but someone who's got the track record and the history of success and case studies where they can demonstrate to people, then my view is that every business should have one. But it is becoming more of an accepted thing that a business would probably have a business coach.
You mentioned having a coach on your on your desk. Much like we've got a computer, a laptop on our desk, right? A lot of people now can get coaches, the AI coaches, the coach bots, downloaded onto their desktop. What do you make of this? This change within the last kind of year, 2 years. What impact do you see AI having on your role, on business coaches' roles? For good, for bad.
It's a really interesting world at the moment, but I guess we could say that at any time, when we're talking about these things, AI is not a new thing. It's been around 20 years and people call it artificial intelligence. I would call it accelerated information because it allows us to get things way quicker than we did previously. It control, a phenomenal amount of data and give you information very, very quickly. Can it coach you? There are AI bots out there that if you want them to, they will coach you. They will give you the words that you're looking for that a business coach will give you. The one thing AI will not do, of course, James, is not allow you to see the whites of somebody else's eyes and actually see what their body language and everything is telling you. Because lots of studies over the years from the CPD that, the message any message is given in 3 ways: verbal, vocal, and visual. And the words of any message are only 7% of the message. This is from their studies. It's the reason why text messages and WhatsApp messages are very dangerous, because what you think you've written may be completely misconstrued by the person that's received it. If we get something like this, so people can hear pitch, intonation, speed, etc., it gives the message more meaning, and that's 38% of the message, and the other 55% is body language. So once you've got all 3 of those, you can see that actually everything is intact, and you can see everything is. So if you're going to get an AI bot to coach you, because they can, you are only going to get 7% of the message. You'll read it, and you may understand everything it's telling you. You may misconstrue it. But you're never going to get that deep-seated where I'm going to sit down and ask you some really difficult questions that you really don't want to be asked. And, for example, if I use you as the example, James, I could sit down with you and say, so James, come on, life is a mirror. Life is very good at telling us we are exactly where we are in our lives currently on the back of every single decision we've made in our life. And I will say to people, before you go to bed tonight, if you're not happy with how much money you've got in your business current account, last thing you must do is look in the mirror, because the reason that is the case is looking straight back at you. An AI bot is never going to ask you or tell you that. I do also say on the flip side that if you're really happy with what you've got in your business current account or your personal account, last thing you must do at night is look in the mirror. And the reason it's as good as that is looking straight back at you, because we are the result of all the decisions that we've made. So sometimes in fact, all times, the human interaction and asking the difficult questions. And 12 years I've been running this now, James. So I don't now mind if I upset people, if I ask them questions that they really don't want to be asked. In the early days, I'd be worried about losing clients. These days, I'm much more worried about making sure I'm the very best coach that I can be, and taking that person, the business, to where it needs to get to. So I'll ask the difficult questions, and an AI bot is never going to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me of the someone mentioned this on a previous episode. The owner of the the submersible, the Titanic submersible that imploded, right? And he was on board when it imploded, and he knew of the warning signs, but he, for some reason, he chose to ignore it. He was almost sort of blinded to the facts that he was seeing, right? And I think having an in-person coach, and for any kind of decisions or high-level activity, there's a level of emotion in there. There's there's logic. There's so many different things that come into interaction that AI can't really replicate, can't get out, right? So if he was making all of his decisions based off of an AI bot going backwards and forwards, he probably wasn't asked those difficult questions. He probably wasn't tapped into, what emotional tie are you having that's having you ignore the warning signs, right? Quite interesting.
So if I ask those questions, business owners have got the choice as to whether they answer them or ignore them. But if I ask them, I am just going to stare at them until they actually give me something to say, right, okay, I understand the question. Leave it with me. Okay, fine, that's your decision. The one thing we are seeing with AI, James, is, and people need to be very careful of this because we're seeing it already. Previously, to try and build up relationships, we would go through the well-known know, like, trust process. So you get to know people, like them, and then you trust them and say, right, okay, I'll either work with you or refer work to you. What we are seeing is what I call the know, like, trust, distrust process, because people are posting things on social media which have clearly been written by some kind of AI. It is not that person, and we can see that. And if we're going to post things on social media where a lot of people see us and people recognize that that's not us, what trust is there to say that, oh, actually, I want to think I got to go and work with this person, because they know it's been AI generated. And we have seen it already, that businesses are losing clients, they're losing customers, because if they can't trust what they're actually posting on social media, how can we actually trust you with anything, whether the customer experience, whatever it's going to be? So we are seeing the know, like, trust, untrust or distrust process actually happening. So everybody that's tuning into this podcast, if that's you, I mean, by all means use AI, because they can generate them for you, but by golly, go back and humanize them before you actually post them.
So that's an interesting point. Like, at what point, because, AI does speed things up. It does take away the monotonous tasks, activities. And that, I think, for any any business owner is game changing. You don't need to spend your time on tapping away on the keyboard, doing this report, that report. Anything that you do more than 3 times, just automate it. Get it done. Leverage yourself for human connection, for sales calls, for speaking with people. Right, but at what point do you think AI should be used and then should stop in a business?
And that's a really difficult question to answer because every single business is different.
Yeah.
You could look at a legal company and say, how much AI do you want to use within your legal world?
Mm,
There are things now that can go and search tomes and tomes of case history and bring you the result very quickly, which used to have to be done by individuals poring over old cases
yeah.
of British history, US history, whatever it was. AI now can do that very, very quickly. So in those instances, we'll know that that will happen. But the
Yeah.
actual deliverance then when you're in a courtroom will never be done by AI. That has to be done by a human being, and it has to be done by a very experienced and a very good human being. But the length of time it used to take to go back, they say 2 weeks, 3 weeks to try and find all the examples from case law in times past, that will probably happen now in 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours. The experience then has to be still going and picking out the correct case law that is appertaining to that particular one. So AI could work in that world, but not at the point of delivery when you're in a courtroom or talking to clients or customers.
Mm,
Similarly, if you look at, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, he wanted to accelerate the world so you could buy with one click.
yeah.
Now, ultimately, it became 2 clicks. Would you take 2 clicks? And the answer to that is yes. So you could
Yeah.
advance some things really, really well in different worlds. But could I give you a specific answer that say when do you stop in any particular industry? It really would be case by case.
Yeah, and you can't use AI to ascertain that. You've got to make that decision yourself, because exactly,
You
what impact does it have for good, but also for bad on your business? Is it helping you to build authority within your space? Is it helping you to become more efficient? Is it causing distrust amongst your potential partners, clients, whoever that you work with? Balancing that out and finding out, where do you stop? What do you automate? What do you bring AI in to do? What strategy do you use it for? That's absolutely what you say. That's very different for every industry and every kind of sector.
And
Yeah.
AI, of course, will only ever give you back what's already been put in by somebody. So it can only give you a history lesson. It can't give you
Mm,
anything new because anything else that's going to go into it has not been created yet by us to be able to actually go into it. So they can only ever give you a history lesson. They can't tell you what's going to happen in times future. But it is a vital and necessary part of daily work now and daily life because it is so powerful. It's
yeah.
so quick,
Yeah.
James.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question, John. So I ask everyone this towards the end. So don't worry if you have to think for a second. But putting your own sort of business hat on, if you could get automation, get AI, any kind of level of high technology to just take away one part of your day-to-day business operations, what would have the biggest impact on you as a business leader?
Something that would just remove, but not just for me, but for most businesses, they would just remove all admin. Any,
You
anything
didn't
that
need two thoughts at all for that.
well, we absolutely know from the studies over the last 32 years across lots of countries when we're working with businesses that we can systemize 80% of the things that happen in every single business. On average, we can systemize 80%. The other 20% have to be humanized because we need people involved and always will. Or to my mind, always will at least. So that 80% that can be systemized, anything that AI can do to speed up systemizing that 80% and get it done as quickly as possible, because if you're not doing it, your competitors are certainly working on it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Very well said there, John. I mean, going forward into the next 6 months, 1 year, what do you have in the pipeline? What's coming up for you?
Well, interesting. That's a great question. Only because this is hot off the press, not literally hot off the press, but will be soon. My experiences in my corporate life and then coming in and running this business, I've realized that the ultimate determinant of success is what's between your ears.
Mm,
So I've actually written a book about mindset, and the early parts of the book are around what happened to me in my corporate life when I was growing up. And the second half is around businesses that we've worked with and how they've got to where they've got to. So there are 6 case studies on that. There's a case study on one person whose mind was working, but in the wrong direction, because we wanted to illustrate that it can work both ways. Then there are 4 chapters around people who've just done sensational things. So anybody that's listened to the radio show that we have on Steel FM, local here in North Lincolnshire, we've had Michelle Harness on, the lady who saved Scunthorpe United. So Michelle has a full chapter to herself as one of those 4 people. And then the last 3 chapters are around what I would call global icons. So I don't mind sharing that one of them is a guy that's been at the top of the sporting coaching world for 50 years called Frank Dick. He coached Daley Thompson, Justin Rose, Boris Becker, and everybody at the upper echelons. We've got a guy with a full chapter to himself called Marcus Sheridan, who's probably one of the best marketers currently. He's got a brilliant book called They Ask, You Answer. Latest edition is called Endless Customers. And of course, the last chapter goes to Brad Sugars, who started Action Coach all those years ago. So that's just going through the editing process to be published, and that'll be coming out in February.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why I've done that is because having understood that business owners and people, anybody wants to be successful in life, the ultimate determinant is that 6 inches between your ears, and working for you is the most powerful tool you've got. Working against you, it's the worst enemy you can have. And I just wanted to, it's kind of give back to the community my learnings, that people can see that actually we can have anything we want if only we understood how to get there.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, for anyone that wants to reach out to you directly, John, what's the the best contact details to reach you on?
Jump on LinkedIn. You'll find me there, John McHale. My surname is spelled MCHALE. So John McHale. I'm the guy that says Action Coach. And if you want to visit my website, www.johnmchale.actioncoach.com, I think I just go on it every day without looking at it.
I'll get the right contact details and put them below, John. And I would highly recommend. Well, I mean, maybe you can say, John, who are the best partners to work with you? Who are the best?
Well, anybody that wants to have a conversation, we will always have a conversation first. Nicola will put people in my diary, and we don't charge for that. People want to come and have a chat and see where they're at. And because for a lot of people, business coaching is not for them. We had a company come to see us last week, and I said, you seriously do not need a professional business coach. What you do need is a plan. Probably a 90-day plan. Have one of those for each of the next 4 quarters. If you follow that, then we probably need another discussion at that point. But for most smaller businesses, we just need you don't need. And if people try to sell business coaching services, and this is my only bugbear with the industry, that people try to sell services when they're not needed. So I'm quite happy to tell people that you don't need them. So it might just be read a book or put a plan in place. But anybody that's looking to accelerate and is unsure as to how that happens and what to do, we will talk to anybody. And if the right people need a bit more, we'll sit down with them for 90 minutes. It doesn't cost them anything, but it might be the best 90 minutes they've had.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I think what draws me, I haven't had any experience with an action coach before, but the one of the things that drew me to this conversation especially is simply the word action in the name. The one thing that I've learned over time, and I would say to any business leader at any stage, is if you are stressed, if you are going through some period in the business operations that you're just stuck, the worst thing you can do is do nothing. The best thing you can do is take action, and even better, take appropriate action, which is where, working with the likes of you, John, you come in to make sure that appropriate action is going to help get you away from that stress, right?
It's really interesting. I know we're drawing to a close. So we have water bottles that say the biggest risk you can take is to do nothing. So completely concur with what you've just said. And Brad, who owns Action Coach, speaks on stages around the world. And invariably, when he's speaking, he will say, I called my company Action Coach. I did not call it, that sounds like a really good idea, let's think about it for 30 days, coach. He said, no, I called it Action Coach, because if we don't take actions, James, nothing changes.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, the quick recap, John. So the standouts for me, the trends haven't changed. So as you said, people, time, money, those are typically the areas that people businesses are struggling on, and working with yourself, you help to unpick those and to, as we just said, take action to find the right steps to move forward. When it comes to working with coaches, do your due diligence. It goes without saying.
Absolutely.
But it is vetted in the UK. Make sure that whoever you're working with has a track record, has the case studies, is going to deliver the kind of results that you need for your company. And with that, transformation, it's not necessarily transformation that you're going to experience, but it is taking the right steps to move forward with your business, right? And then, with AI, um, every industry, every sector is extremely different. Where it starts, where it stops, that's what you've got to try and figure out yourself. And there's
We,
definitely a use case. There's definitely acceleration you can experience with AI, but it's finding out where is most beneficial, where can be detrimental for you as a business.
there are three great takeaways. If I just add one more, James, is
Yeah.
business coaching done correctly, should implement processes and systems in your business, which means that the business should work whether the business owner is there or not. And when they can get their heads around the fact that ultimately it could work without them, which is a big mindset shift that goodness, crikey, it would work whether I'm there or not. So they've got something that they don't have to be necessarily there for every day. And they've also got something that's more sellable if ever they get to that point. So yeah, three great takeaways. I'll just throw that one on top.
Yeah, very, very well said, John. And finally, thank you so much for joining us today, John. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
It's been great to be on. I'm delighted to be asked. And a year, 2 years from now, if you want to grab me back and get an update, more than happy to do that, James. Real pleasure to be on. Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, John. And thank you everyone for listening. Please do like and share this video so we can get this message out to as many people as possible. Thank you very much.